Okay. So once again, welcome back to AX's monthly virtual coffee break, and then we are happy to bring the topic on the table finally. We've been talking about the Japanese ad marketing and its culture, its creative preferences all throughout the year, I think,
Yeah.
and we've had some our clients and audiences request about their desire to know more about the Korean market. we br- we just wanted to talk a little bit about the Korean market. And as myself, is originally from Korea, so I guess I can have more confidence with the content about today. And please bear with us today, and hope something from this presentation is productive for you. Okay, so just in case anybody is not as fluent in English, you can always turn on the translation stuff on the Google Meet. This is how you do it.
I yeah. I noticed there are like Koreans and Japanese registrants as well, so this would be really helpful for them as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then and just in case if any of you guys have questions, you can use the Q&A feature on the Google Meet, or you can simply just leave message on the chat box. Okay, so let's begin. We have only 3 agendas, but I promise you the stuff will be pretty deep. And let's first talk about, is Korea really so different from Japan? And the next topic is let's have deeper understanding about the Korean market, and then what kind of global apps actually have been making some significant presence in the revenue chart. And then finally, we will briefly talk about successful strategies that we noticed in Korea. Okay, so have any of you guys been to either Japan or Korea?
Feel free to send an emoji.
Yeah.
If you guys.
So any chance for you to make your visit to Japan or Korea yet?
Jo Sakura.
I can tell from her name that she's from Japan. So
Oh, Irina as well.
okay, good. So for you guys been to, whether even though you haven't been to Korea or Japan, you probably know that these 2 countries geographically are not far away. So by plane, it's about like an hour or just 2 hours to fly from Japan to Korea.
And you can use the ferry, right?
Yeah.
So near.
So it's not like you are flying from Tokyo to all the way to like Los Angeles or anything like that. It's But the question arises then, from especially from the Western Hemisphere, since those 2 countries are located pretty close, why don't we just use the creatives or the keywords that you guys set up for the Japan and to apply that to Korea too?
Which we actually see a lot that the global company and global apps are doing, that they think maybe it's the same, so they just create like the same ASO with Japan and Korea.
Yeah, especially keyword wise, you might just use the translation tool out there to make the Korean titles and the Japanese titles and the descriptions or whatsoever. But creative strategy wise, it's easy to think that similar patterns, similar maybe symbols, or the structure may be preferred between the 2 countries. But let's see if it's really true. Language is totally different, and culturally it's not the same. So I would say that it's going to be very helpful for you guys to have Korea's own marketing and creative strategy, and then one for Japan. So here's why I think so. So it's according to Hofstede, is socialist, not socialist, social physician, I think, and then the cultural doctor who studied a lot about the cultural differences and how it is applied to their behaviors. So apparently I added Korea and Japan and the United States symbols on the chart, and then there are many similar areas where Korea and Japan share some common grounds, right? But the one thing that had a huge difference is the motivation towards achievement. So Japan had almost the highest score for that, while Korea is below the 50 score. Whereas, the working hard, like working hard and being diligent in Korea and Japan are similar. So both countries have high scores on uncertainty avoidance and long-term oriented, motivations. And indulgence wise, it's lower scores. So they rather indulging, they would work hard today so that their tomorrow can be easier, so they can rest in future. But even so, these are quite major areas that are common. So if they share these values, it might be quite certain that the culture should be similar. But the motivation towards achievement, I think that's where the big difference occurs between these two countries. So what it is that I can list down the differences a lot longer, but the Korea's culture is, I think, heavily rooted in the motivation not to get behind compared to the people sitting next to you.
Mm-hmm.
So their culture is very fast tempo. So pali. I don't know if you're familiar with the phrase, but it means quickly and faster.
And I hear that a lot in Korean dramas. If anyone also watches, I think they would understand and hear that a lot as well.
Yeah, so timely inefficiency to the Korean people means lack of competency. So when something, maybe you order something on the maybe Amazon service, you would expect it to be delivered at your door within 1 day. So they like everything to be fast. And at a city hall, whatsoever administration, paperwork, they want that to be very fast. And they are very fast to accept new technology, like electronic cars and, cashless payment, all of it. So if you visit Korea in, recent future, you notice that, every single cafeterias and, cafes, would not accept cash very much. They all will have the digital kiosk at the entrance, so you can order yourself with your card or the electronic payment with your, application. That's how you do it. And if you try to, pay in cash, they accept it, but will be looked at as quite awkwardly because they are so, mature with the electronic payment. But on the other hand, Japan, they tend to be very meticulous and very slow-tempered, repeating tasks to get rid of every possible error to a level it may look ineffective in a certain way. As a Korean, from the fast tempo culture, I would say that, I've had this experience quite a lot, that can the Japanese people work a little more flexibly? They've checked it, a couple of times already, and then sometimes I couldn't really understand why they have to do it again. So it's rooted in their culture. They're meticulous, and then it takes time till accepting something new. Analog is still preferred in Japan. So in many cases, like handwriting forms in the administrative, when you make a assignment form, and only pencil is allowed when you vote for your prime minister, and cash payment is still preferred in many local restaurants in Japan rather than the electronic payment.
Yes, and we still have fax in Japan too.
Yeah, probably the generations you wouldn't really may not even know what fax is, but yeah, that's how these two countries are, very very different. And I think it's that the motivation for the Japanese people for the achievement that they set as a goal, that really makes them to check everything again, to really make the achievement to be done, that they can confidently say that I've achieved this. Whereas Korea, they are motivated to work hard. Their goal is long oriented, but rather than having their own goal to achieve, they rather work hard just not to get behind than anybody else. I think this really shows up a lot in the application market too. So understanding, I mean, having this kind of understanding and why Korea and Japan are different, we can now talk more about what should the global apps and games do to prepare for success in Korea.
Yes. So of course, to prepare for success in Korea, we have to understand first about the Korean mobile market, right?
Yeah.
So we've gathered information to share to you guys. And so how big actually is the mobile market size in Korea? So based on the latest data from Aptica, so this is last year's January to December data. South Korea is actually a really high value market, which is the fourth revenue ranking worldwide. And it also had a 22% growth just by last year. And I think it's quite high with the growth. So Korea, we can say that really has a significant growth potential. And looking into the OS distribution in Korea, it's really quite obvious. There's a significant preference for Android devices in Korea, of course, because of Samsung.
Yes.
If you guys don't know, Samsung is actually made in Korea.
Yeah.
Yep. You're one of your prides, right?
But I shouldn't say it because I'm using iPhone. So.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So, so the Korean people have high preference over Samsung devices and so Android OS.
Yes. And by average, it's actually 7:3 ratio between Samsung and iOS. And looking at the revenue, of course, it makes sense as well that Android would get the big chunk because more Android users, so it goes to more revenue as well. Yep. And let's look at the popular non-game apps in 2023. So here, the biggest one is actually Webtoon. And yeah, so these are like the comics reading, right? And it grew by 72% just by last year. It's quite huge.
That's huge.
And the second one is the OTT, so like the Disney Plus and Netflix. But there's a lot of local.
Yeah, like Coupon Play, Watch TV, and Loftel. Surprisingly enough, Loftel is only for animation platform. So like that's not a thing in Japan. Well, there's the anime that's operated by a Japanese biggest telecom company too. But yeah, so Korea is welcoming the Japanese anime and the subculture as well. But it's pretty interesting that there are the comics and the OTT are the top two categories that had increased and that had the most revenue in 2023.
Yeah, and I would actually expect it to be video streaming more, but it's not the case for Korea. And also there's the dating app, SNS, and music streaming as well.
Yes.
So now let's look at the popular games in 2023. So this is based on revenue, and we actually observed 2,000 apps, the top 2,000 apps in Aptica, and we found out that RPG is the genre that takes the biggest chunk of the game, more than simulation, action, and casual games, and so on. And based on revenue share as well, it's also the biggest chunk is the role play.
Yeah, RPG is taking more than half of the top 2,000 game revenue in Korea. So the count wise, there's role playing and simulation and strategy and action casual in somewhat more balanced distribution, but revenue wise, it's heavily biased towards role playing.
And looking at the global non-game app, this is the top 150 based on revenue. Games, of course, are gaining more revenue. And only 28 out of 150 are non-games. So it's either global and Korean made. And for the global apps, only 4 apps actually ranked in this 150. And interestingly, the iOS version ranked higher than the Android version.
Yeah.
It's really good insight, I think. And these 4 apps are the gigantic services, which is on the left here: YouTube, Tinder, Disney Plus, and Speak, which is kind of like a Duolingo.
English learning. Well, not just English, but foreign language learning app.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, these apps probably like gained benefit from the brand recognition globally, and they have the existing user base already. And I think they just did their localization and cultural relevance really good. I think Alan can share a lot more about what they release in the country.
Yeah, so I guess YouTube, Tinder, and Disney Plus are really the globally big giant services. So I guess the Speak is one thing that we can have more weight on it. And it had it starred a famous celebrity for ads and preview videos. But having a popular celebrity in your ad and creatives usually helps. But it's not only that, how they directed it, what the copywriting that they used for the video was pretty interesting. I want to go back to the idea that the Korean cultures, fast tempo, and then accepting new is rooted in their motivation to not get behind. And the video example that I just linked in here really speaks to that motivation. So the one thing that the Korean people have hard time, the reason why they have hard time with English learning is not really about understanding the grammar or memorizing the vocabulary or anything like that. It's more of it. Most of it comes from their shyness when they have to speak English. Is that they are very sensitive with pronunciation. They don't want to look like they want to sound perfect. So like they would have the perfect grammar in their mind, but to speak it out, they don't have a lot of chances to actually speak English in Korea because everyone speaks Korean. So they're worried about the pronunciation, and then they are worried about being wrong, and the speak as talk about it. So like make mistakes within speak, so you can be fluent in real life. So now you're in the app, in the safe zone. So you can make mistakes as much as you want. And then there's the AI feature that corrects your pronunciation, tells you what's the right thing. So it gives you the confidence to have your speech in English in real life as well. So those kind of motivation driven, and you don't get behind if you use our tool or our service. I think that really drove more boost for Speak. So it actually made more revenue than Duolingo in Korea. So it's not the case in Japan. So Duolingo is usually on the top chart when it comes down to education and language learning. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. And going back, we have the global non-game app with top 150 downloads. So interestingly here, 31 out of 150 are Google made apps and 19 only are Samsung made. Yeah. And for SNS, it's populated, of course, by the popular ones: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. It has the large number of downloads in Korea. And for the next one is the OTT, is the Netflix and Disney Plus. So Netflix did not appear for some reason on the revenue chart, but it had more downloads actually with Disney Plus. And I can see that I'm a huge user of this two apps, OTTs actually, and I can see a lot of Korean locally made dramas
Yeah,
and
the
movies.
original series.
Yep. And Disney.
Squid Game was one of it, and it went very very popular globally too. But
And I see that Disney Plus is also keeping up with it too. I see a
oh
lot
yeah,
of
very much so.
dramas now there that just exclusively there. So that's why I'm a subscriber of both.
Yeah, you're living in Japan and you're subscribed to these big OTTs to watch Korean series.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yes. And yeah, for the e-commerce, it's the China developed e-commerce
Yeah.
apps that's like I
That's
think
like-
it's true to any other countries
Yeah.
as well.
It's dominating globally.
Yes,
Yeah,
very strong and music streaming. So though there are also Korean made music apps like Melon, yeah.
Yep.
And I've
And
used it
Box.
before too, yeah. And it's getting higher downloads, but this global apps are also competing well with the locally made
Yeah.
apps.
So it's the download ranking, but with the revenue, the YouTube Premium and the Spotify, well, especially Spotify wasn't any high, and Melon and Box was actually higher than YouTube Premium and then the Spotify. So I will get back to this point again, but even though we say that the global giants are doing well and they're performing some significant roles in Korean market, but revenue wise and then actual usage wise, the Korean made local services alternative to this global services are winning as well. So it's getting pretty tough for the global services as well, especially if it's non-game. But I will get back to you guys in a minute of what we can suggest to have a chance and succeed in Korean market as non-game app.
Okay, and video related, Kapka. Okay, so let's move on to the global games in the top 150 revenue. So we can see a lot of familiar apps, games over here. So local is, of course, dominating the biggest chunk in the pie, but we have the 30% global as well, and which are these games. So if you actually play a lot of like games, I see a lot of these games in the ads. So they're like really the games that are really like pushing globally are these games. So we have the strategy simulation games, the Japanese anime style games, and Hoyoverse has like 3 apps over here, and casual games, of course, and China made RPG and strategy games, which are I think popularly globally popular as well, right?
But quite several games are only targeting the China and the Korean market.
I see.
Yeah. So the more details and how they made success in Korea will be discussed soon.
Yep.
So yeah, let's find that out by looking at some common things of the global apps and games in the top chart. Let's start with the non-game, so just the apps in the chart. So as we've briefly discussed, no significant appearances of global apps in the chart, except for the giants. Why? It is likely because that the Korea is a highly competitive culture, not wanting to get behind. So that's the user's motivation. That's what users want to see, want to be provided with the services that they pay for. So the services now get really intense and competitive with the timely service. They consider the time, and they really mean that time is gold. So I put my articles link, and I discussed about it. Why it is so is, for example, like there's the service called Coupon. So that's kind of like what Amazon does in other countries. So how Coupang won Amazon in competition was that Coupang managed to deliver the product within 24 hours. Obviously, you have to be a paid subscription member to really have the service, but that time in the delivery was earned by the local service, and it's obviously easier for the local services to achieve than the global services, because it's so much harder to make such a fast and stable logistics in another country. And yeah, that's the time wise, and then the price wise. Yes, when there's the similar quality of products, one may choose that's cheaper. That's simple it is. And then it's in as the highly competitive culture, the cutting down the price, the competition over it, it is often found not just in actual products, but also the subscription fees or the product fees around the application services. So it's going to be a bit tough for the global apps to offer such price offers and the promotions compared to the local apps. And then another point is that the originality, as Jamie mentioned, that the Netflix and Disney Plus, even though they are global services, how they are bridged in and then are making more revenue than the Korean local apps is that they are offering exclusive original content in their apps and services. So and they look for original, they look for something new, and they get tired of things pretty easily because if they just continue to use the same thing, they feel like they get behind. So they constantly look for something new, and thus trend changes quickly. So it's going to be quite hard to catch up, especially from the global providers. But even that being said, my suggestion would be to look out for the niche market in Korea. So since they are always looking for something new, every services are very much segmentized. So even though it's a dating app, you want to categorize it very dissect the category. Maybe it's not just about men and girl. You want to categorize it in maybe under the religion, maybe under the hobby, maybe under your preferences over something food. That kind of niche market will stand out as a original service, and then that's going to be a huge weapon and a very sharp one to bring you success in Korea. Yeah, and then let's talk about the common things among the global games now. So there's the weird looking letter on the far left. That's
How do we read that?
you can read it as 대세강.
대세강. I'm butchering your language. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. I do that to other languages too. So I often do it in English as well. But anyway, yeah. So it can be translated into popular hide. I'll get back to you soon what it exactly means. And other common things is iOS and then the localization. Localization is quite obvious, but I prepare some good examples of what are good localization in Korea. So popular hide. What exactly is popular hide then? So I would say it is close to trend, but it's something more than that. So it is a tide that makes you feel like you are getting behind if you don't join it. I know I am repeating getting behind multiple times throughout this presentation, but as a Korean, I cannot express any other better way, any better than that phrase because as I prepare for this presentation, I will realize that has been some motivation in my past life experience. But anyway, so the games that have as global games which succeeded in Korea had a success in making this popular tide in Korea, making people think that you don't play this game, you're getting behind. So how they did it? So obviously, performance marketing behind this, brand awareness marketing had to be done. But a game like Uma Musume literally did the OH in every possible space where people, where the target audiences often visit. Even on an elevator cover, they put the ads there.
It's my first time seeing an ad on an elevator door, actually.
So yeah, this is, it's not like every big, department store or the building in Seoul, but, it's the building that's popular for this, subculture, preferred hobby people. So they put the elevator there. So and then at the major, bus stops, on the doors of the taxis, on the bus windows and the giant OH. So there have been a lot of PR articles titled that Uma Musume everywhere. Wherever you go, you would notice this, banner and the ads. So this really generated that this is something popular. This is something that everyone has to pay attention. Yeah, even though up to this announcement point, animation was still pretty popular in Korea, but people didn't really open it publicly because it still had a little bit of a negative impression to it. You know, because it's just that when you like animation, that's the only thing that you like, and sometimes it was viewed that those people might have some social awkwardness and things like that, but this really changed how people view toward the
That is
subculture
widely
wise.
accepted, right?
Yes. Another example is to have a popular actors or actresses within your game. So collaboration with movie star
I know
or
this guy.
yeah. So I'm pretty sure many of you would notice about the movie Parasite. It won the Oscar, I think the award of director in 3 years ago, and then the Rise of Kingdoms, recruited the main character of Parasite, Kang Song, in the commercial, and then used it as a creative, and obviously making the big tide that okay, this is even bigger than major. Now I'm with the Oscar level, right? So this kind of making the brand awareness and then brand power is very popularly used marketing strategy in Korea. Yeah, same thing with Genshin Impact. So this is near the Han River. There's a huge stage that's called Sebitung. So I know that sounds a bit I don't yeah, that was Korean location name, but anyway, it's pretty big, and it's probably about the size of a football stadium. And then Genshin Impact rented the entire venue.
There's a lot of people actually.
Yeah, so they are having their own Tokyo Games stuff just for Genshin.
Nice.
Yeah, just for Genshin, and a lot of people cosplays, and yeah, the event maybe is for the fans of the game, but Han River, that's where about 3 million, 4 million people walk by, drive by every day. So you would look at the giant banner on the venue at least more than 3 times, I think, and then giving the feel of the popular time. Yeah, and Wuthering Waves was not in the chart in the previous chart because the data was within the 2023, but it's ranking pretty high in 2024 now, and it had a collaboration with a popular fried chicken brand that's called Mom's Touch. Yeah,
Delicious.
it's pretty good, and it actually has a pop-up store in Shibuya right now. But anyway, the collaboration with a popular food brand is a good way to add the brand power to your service, to your game. And last example is PUBG, Battleground Mobile. It had a collaboration with Blackpink or NewJeans. I know these names may not ring your bell if you're not really into the K-pop, but yeah, but they are globally wide, globally big, and then obviously collaboration with such a huge pop groups, celebrities, definitely give you a huge brand power.
Yeah, even though I'm not a gamer, I would be interested to play this one actually because they're there, and I heard that you can change the skins of your
Yeah.
armors or whatever. I'm not really a gamer, but I see it's very effective if you're a K-pop fan, and yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
So yeah, starring famous movie actors or actresses, or collaboration with this K-pop groups, or collaboration with other popular food brands, or putting up the OH and then having an offline event hugely also in Korea, all add up to making the so-called popular tide, Daesegam, and which tends to bring success in Korea as a global game.
The popular type term actually reminds me of the FOMO. Have you ever heard of FOMO?
Mhm.
So it means fear of missing out. So I think it could also be,
Yeah,
that
exactly. So that perfectly, expresses the not wanting to get behind. Good point. Yeah, the next common thing was iOS. One may ask, what all of a sudden iOS has to matter, because all the time we've explained that, Android is the dominant OS, right? Is that, by within the data that we looked at for these games like Survival.io, Whiteout Survival, Gardenscape, Homescape, Royal Match. So the games that can be played casually had a more revenue than Android, even though they had such a lower download. I missed the minus on the Whiteout Survival part, by the way. I will fix it before we send it out. But so less users, but more revenue. That should mean something, right? Yeah, the Android is dominating in Korea, which makes the Korean local games to be heavily biased towards Android OS. So some Korean games are developed only for Android version, and then marketing performance tends to be more effective than iOS in Android. So that's what the Korean game developers and publishers think, and which is usually true, especially for the install campaigns. So their marketing budget is heavily, spent for Android, which makes the competition over Android in Korea be a bit more harsh. And then the ad spaces and that the Korean local or even for the global media that are limited in Android. Only a limited user are using it. So it's going to be impactful in many cases especially for the global games, to take a look at the iOS marketing distributions. Yeah, iOS then is user pool, and the overall size of revenue may be smaller than Android, but competition for this OS may not be as intense. And then the demography of these two OS are quite different. So Android tends to be a little older and then more male focused, whereas iOS is for younger and then female user based. So and other indications besides install can be more positive for the iOS campaigns, especially for like LTVs and retentions and things like that. And so iOS in Korea can be a great niche market for casual games and also for any genres of global games that have to have a better competitiveness in the Korean market. So all that to say that you may hear from here and there that Android is the dominant OS in Korea, and it usually has the better performance in for that OS, which is true. So you may try focus your budget on the Android too. But all I want to say is that iOS may be a great chance for you to have some meaningful users.
There's an opportunity.
Yes. So last point is localization. Let's dig into it, and then So what I want to mention by localization is not really about your game should be written in Korean, and then your in-game should be like all in providing at least Korean subtitles and stuff like that, which will help for sure, and which will be desired by the Korean games. But the localization samples that I prepared today, especially for the title rebranding, is taking one more step than that. So Survivor.io is original, letter is Chinese, and its localization to the English one is totally different, and so as in the Korean one. So Survivor.io, that's localized in Korean in a way that it's using onomatopoeia, the sound of the gun shooting, and then it's adding the special force in the back. So the onomatopoeia is adding some very cute and soft image to the game which matches the design of the icon, and then the special force adds up to, and then the sound of the gun shooting immediately makes the users understand that what's going to be the game about. So when you just say the survivor, there are so many different kinds of survivor games nowadays, right? Minecraft technically is a survivor game, and like zombie survival is a survivor game, and there are so many different survival games in Korea, and then I think that's why localization or even rebranding was a good choice. Similar thing with the Gardenscape. So it's it took out the escape part in the title rather than it just said it's the Garden of Dream.
Oh,
Yeah.
Garden of Dream.
Yeah. So it's adding more those fantasy-like image to the new title and more easily acceptable. Because escape is quite of a actually negative connotation, right? And especially writing it in Korean culture, it would be maybe it would be good to generate more like intensity and the tension of the game provides, but they can be a bit far from the Gardenscape. So I think this localization also worked well. And Arknight, on the other hand, it remained in the original, but did not go with the English version Arknight, which in Japan it followed the English version Arknight. And I mean, my guess why it worked in Korea is that Arknight, it's hard to match with the subculture cute kawaii girls that the game Arknight suggests. Because the knight in Korea is very often used in the MMORPG. We will see those examples in the creatives in the couple slides later, but so I think my guess is that they decided to avoid those kind of feel with the word knight. And Umamusume on the right, it didn't change from original or whatsoever. It just pushed through, powered through with its own branding. So obviously there's no clear answer to the localization, and especially if we bring it to the level of branding. But I think if you are to make a change in your title, catchy and easy to remember titles will be preferred by the Korean users in general. Yep, and this is another example apart from the revenue chart. So Legend of Mushroom, I'm pretty sure you guys have looked into it, a lot of times because it's, it seems to make a lot of revenue, and its rebranding title was pretty interesting too. So Mushroom in Korean, this sounds puzzle. Yes, and the English word berserker, that's berserker again. It's related to a knight or swordman in Korea. So, and then the first level of Berserker is similar to the last level of Bosat. So they put those words together and then made a subcult, so Berserker. And there's that, but they didn't finish there. They added the word kyugi, meaning fostering. So adding a little bit of, kind of catchy, cute, and easy to remember word there.
Really nice wordplay.
Yeah. So instead of just saying that, the Pasawasa의 전설, that's the direct translation of the Legend of Mushroom, which will convey the meaning of the original, but yeah, nothing like, Pasaka Q. That really, adds up to the more like, spice in Korea. Yes. So those were some examples of the title and rebranding in Korea. And then I want to give you some examples of the creatives. So these are the knights, right? And the Chinese games, have usually, share the similar genres that to the popular games in Korea, which is usually MMORPG or the strategy ones. So one on the left is the Chinese main game, and one on the right is the Korean game. And as you can see from our red circles, that's going around on the screen, they're following almost the same structure of the creative. On the right, you have main theme character. and then you have a picture in the window frame, and then your logo on the left top corner, and then same CTA place, very similar font. And Wuthering Waves Chinese game, and then the Solo Leveling, that's a Korean-made game, also very similar, patterns and the structure and the design elements. Legend of Mushroom again, that's Chinese game, but with the Aris, that's a Korean game, like the gacha stuff within the game is really sharing the same elements and the structure in the creatives. So all that to say is that in Korea, if you are kind of stuck with what might be a good Korean element, and then instead of going for like references like Hanbok or Gyeongbokgung and stuff like that, you might as well just look at the Korean App Store or Play Store, and then go to the top chart and then look at the creatives that the Korean games are using, and you might want to use their template or the structure in your game. I think it might be a very good start. That has been all of the information and the presentation that we've prepared for today. And then we have some time to go over your questions. And we've already had a question from Shibani. And then, so the question was, how can we keep up with the latest trends in Korea? That's a very good question. And it's it's not easy, but if it's for the game and the creative wise, is wise choice is to look at the store product pages. And then apart from that, I mean, that's kind of obvious, but apart from that, one interesting idea would be the thumbnails on the YouTube.
All right.
Within the similar genres of the games or the services, you would look at the Korean, influencers, what they make on the YouTube might be good. And other thing is that there is a website, there is a web digital community that's quite popular. It's called DC Inside. So that's just one name for various types of communities within the one same platform. So say if you are a Genshin player, there will be Genshin DC Inside, and the users will be gathered in there, and they will talk about it.
Can you post the
website? Sure. But I must warn you that everything in here will be written in Korean, so
prepare the Google
yeah.
Translate.
And also notice that it's the users in there may be a little bit aggressive too, the language that they use, and then their opinion as well. But that's where the most latest information and most latest user voice gathers.
Hi, Shivani here. So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I was wondering. So, we just talked about being on top of trends for games, but are there any sources that can help us stay on top of trends for apps as well? Maybe photo editing or maybe any document apps or such.
So we did mention that the global significant services for non-games would be a little bit tough to be on the top chart. So I guess the strategy for those would be really focusing on the USP that your service has. I know the answer may be very vague, but it wouldn't be one answer sheet that will guarantee a Korean success in Korea. But as long as your service really promises your users in Korea a service that cannot be found somewhere else, maybe something similar, but there's one niche element that your service provides, then I think you can focus on that and appeal it to the users, and make them think that this is one necessary service.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Yeah, and the presentation will be shared after the webinar. To all the participants of the session, we will send you the email with the link to the Canva presentation and the recorded version of the session will also be uploaded on YouTube, and the link to it will also be shared.
If you registered, we will send it to your email. But in case you're coming elsewhere, the link here, we will update this link, and all our past webinars are also there, and you can easily access it through this link. So yes, all the recording and also the presentation will be shared as well. Okay. We received
Further
another
questions?
question. See.
Yeah.
The Q&A.
Any other notes? It doesn't always have to be the marketing. Any previous experience that you had with the Koreans or the Korean made content.
Or maybe you heard I heard
Yeah.
Korea is like this. Is it true? Is it not? We can ask our
Yeah.
fellow Korean app marketer here. And maybe while we're waiting for more questions, maybe we can announce our next upcoming events.
Sure.
Yes. So next month, sorry for the ones who are online, but we are doing our virtual coffee break, not virtually. Next month, we will.
It's going to be real.
Yes. And
No.
it will be in our Tokyo headquarters. And yeah, we are going to have the Tokyo Game Talk, which is kind of like a reference to the Tokyo Game Show, because we are hosting this before the night before the Tokyo Game Show starts. So it will be about Japanese game market insights and just networking. We will be having Japanese companies as well as global partners as well coming into AIX. So if you are coming to Japan, or if you're in Japan already, feel free to let us know if you're interested to go. And yep, we will see you in Tokyo, hopefully.
There will be free food and drink. So unless you're not coming, please share the words out to someone who is coming, that there will be free food and top drinks and insights.
Would be really interesting to meet some of you, because I've been seeing a lot of people coming every month actually for this.
We appreciate your
webinar.
presence.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And next event is
so after September's offline coffee chat, we'll come back with the virtual coffee break with the topic of successful game marketing strategy in Korea. So we've only touched on briefs of the localization samples, and then the iOS is getting a little bit of higher revenue for certain game category, and making a popular tide and stuff. But let's dig deeper into it. What's the average marketing spend budget to reach certain marketing ranking and things like that. So if you're interested in, or if you want to know more about the Korean market and the actual action plans for the games in Korea, please stay tuned and then come back to see us in October.
Yes. Feel free to sign up to our newsletter so that you will get updated once the registration is open. And yeah, the link is over there, aixpost.com/webinar. Yes. I see that we're not getting new questions here.
Yeah, we will wait about a minute or two, and unless there is any other notes or questions, I think we can call it a day with just a little earlier than usual.
Or just message for us too.
Yeah.
Maybe highly appreciated as well. It's been fun. How many webinars have we already done?
So this is number 10.
Wow.
Including the one that we did in Korean.
Right.
It's going to be 11.
Very insightful webinars every month. And Yep. If you also submitted your app or games link for ASO audit, we will send it to you in 5 business days. I believe next week or next week. And yeah, if you haven't sent us your app or your game, and if you still want to claim your ASO audit, feel free to contact us. Yeah, or just send it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess that's it for tonight or today.
I'm just on the Korean heart.
Yeah, that's what Korean people made celebrities do before the camera. So we appreciate your presence. Thanks for joining us with the webinar, and always appreciate being with us every month. And please stay tuned for more great insight, and we'll be with you. Have a great rest of the day, and we will see you soon.
감사합니다.
감사합니다.
They say right.
You said it right.
See you.